It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by Agile Dad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started.
I get so excited when people who take my class send me links, and I appreciate this one. This was a link to a blog post that was by Ramante Salakite, and I want to make sure I say the name right. And it's called "What are the magic metrics to measure your team's performance?" And I thought this was kind of interesting because I've been talking a lot about metrics lately because I've had lots of organizations who are quizzing me on what these metrics should be. So he starts out, ever since I started working as a Scrum Master, I was interested in trying all the metrics that are out there. I was looking for the only metric that would help me see how my team is performing and how they are succeeding. Instead, I found that there's no such magic metric. There's a wide range of metrics guiding you through your team's performance and where you need to help them. And today we're going to discuss the favorite ways of measuring team performance. Okay, so the first one, is this the real life? Is this velocity? Caught in a backlog, no escape from my Jira day. Right? No, right? So velocity is an interesting concept, but it's not one that should be used to measure the individual team performance because people mistreat it, abuse it. There's so many ways you can corrupt velocity. So if you're using a velocity as a main metric of performance, you are sorely mistaken. Velocity should never be used to measure performance. I'll say that again. Velocity should never, ever, ever, under any circumstance, ever, no matter what, ever, are we getting back together. Oh, wait, no, it's a Taylor Swift song. Hold on. Velocity should never, ever be used to measure team performance. People are estimating backlog items to try to get their head around it. They're using story points. They're trying to tie back to time. There's so many things that could go wrong. So when you're talking about also the different types of work, if you say there's no difference between a bug, a technical task, a user story, the team's just aiming to derive more story points and value. What I'm telling you is you have to draw the line somewhere. So the seventh principle of the Agile Manifesto talks about working software, working products and services as the primary measure of success for the team. I think chasing higher velocity reminds me of The Price is Right. If you ever watched a game show, The Price is Right, they have that one game where the little mountain hiker goes up and he's he's getting to the top of the mountain. But then what happens is as the velocity continually increases, when he gets to the top of the mountain, if he takes one additional step, he falls off the mountain and plummets to his death. Right? That might be a little deep, but I think that people confuse velocity with value. They compare velocity of different teams to each other. They try to distinguish which team's delivering more value, which team's sprint has the most value. And what I can tell you is this is just a vanity metric and something that we should put away. We can use velocity to help determine consumption of work, but not to help determine the value that's going to be provided. Interesting, right? Okay. So you can use it for capacity and stuff like that, but I don't let teams break velocity. Okay, so what about measuring the value of what we deliver? Instead of chasing a higher velocity, we can just measure the value of the things that we give to our customers. This is a great metric to track and to figure out how things are performing. So now I'm going to ask you a question. How do we measure it? Ouch. Well, the first Agile principle talks about, of the Agile Manifesto, talks about early and continuous delivery of valuable products and services. The third principle talks about frequent delivery of value. So the question becomes, okay, great, that's wonderful, but how do you know you're doing it right? How do you know you're tracking the right thing? How do you know you're doing this frequently enough? What are we tracking? The key here is we need to convert these principles into useful metrics. So the team should start looking into the product and customer impact. The value can be measured in a number of ways, including customer clicks on a recently released feature, technical value, so traffic going through your recently launched API platform. There's just so many things you can track, and when you track these numbers, data don't lie, right? It's just one of those things. Then you can figure out um, by figuring out the number of requests as a key value indicator, and then a relationship between a customer value and a team that's creating it. So there's lots of things you can do and lots of things you can track as long as you don't go overboard. So, what about continuous growth? Can we measure that? How do we measure continuous growth? And the 12th Agile principle talks about continuous improvement, empiricism, and retrospectives, right? But this principle is teaching us to inspect and adapt at regular intervals, to coach our teams to go through the experimentation process, to be open to learning from failure. And all these things are true, but they're not easy to convince other people that we need to do, right? Because this will set us back. This will cause us to move slower. And both of those things are true. But you need to incorporate experimentation into everything that you do in order for you to gain momentum and to get to the point where you're building a high quality product or service that's actually something that people want to consume. So that's another way to measure how things are going. I think continuous growth is a big one. But my hope is that as we study these, that you'll learn more about the importance of empirical process, inspection, adaptation, and making sure that we're continuously being transparent. Those are the things that are going to help us be successful, and those are the things that are going to help us measure success. What about the growth of technical craftsmanship? If you're building a technical product or service, great. Keep track of those things. Make sure that you're constantly keeping up not just with the latest trends, but with the things that are adding value. And make sure we're doing pair programming, peer reviews, mob programming. Make sure we have good uh, code clarity and we have coding standards and testing standards. We talked about that in the 7 Deadly Sins of Technical Debt last week. All right, maybe we should measure team morale. Team morale is another great metric to measure, but once again, there's so many things that are attached to team morale that it could put your one best person into a tailspin if you're constantly dwelling on the one negative thing that happens. So we need to make sure that when we do this, that we're understanding what motivates people. So one of the things that I talk about in my advanced certified scrum master class is the 3 questions. And I'm not talking about what did you do yesterday, what are you doing today, and do you have any impediments. I'm talking about when you wake up on Monday morning, what drives you, what motivates you, what excites you the most about coming to work each day. Number 2 is, if I could take one thing off your plate, what makes you wish you had an eternal snooze button on your clock? If I could take away that one thing that you hate to do and you never have to do it again, what would that be? What would you have me do? What is it that upsets you about the things that are going on? And then third, finally, do you love what you do? And if not, what would you rather be doing? And I find that when we ask people these questions, we get good answers and morale goes up and people feel like you care. And I love this quote. Somebody said, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I really do believe that working that way is true. But the thing is, we need to make sure that we understand that while there's no golden metric or no one thing you can measure, I always say if all else fails, we'll go back to the TPS report, the team productivity statistic report, right? Yeah. Did you remember to put a cover letter on there? I can get you a copy of the memo. And if you could come in on Sunday, that would be great. Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Lots of fun things going on. If you have a topic you want us to cover or a story you want us to talk about, feel free to reach out to us at learnmore@agiledad.com, where I'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.